Welcome to the Executive Suite podcast. I'm Savannah Economopoulos, CEO and founder of Check Creative and co-founder of Icon Talent. This is where growth, business, and mindset all check in. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Executive Suite podcast. So we always start with our check-in and our checkouts. The check-in this week is that my company did not grow 226% this year like it did last year. And that's okay. And you're not going to grow 226% every year. And honestly, growing at 226% was extremely chaotic. It was a lot. So giving myself grace is the win, and not beating myself up for not reaching the same amount of growth as last year or more. And my checkout is that I still have a hard time saying no when I see opportunity. And this literally happened this week. An opportunity presented itself, and now I am looking into this opportunity. We're not going to talk about it because it's really fresh. Something totally different than this space and this realm. But yeah, so I'm stubborn, and it's going to have to be something that I'm going to have to learn on my own. I'm going to have to learn it on my own. So this episode, I want to talk about learning how to just give yourself grace after mistakes are made. Too much ambition will get you in trouble down the line. And I do think that a lot of these feelings and the way that I am are stemmed from sports. Growing up as a kid, my dad had me, up until junior high, my dad and my mom had me in softball, volleyball, basketball, and I danced. I danced for 8 years, played softball, while I was dancing, and playing all the other sports while I was dancing as well. But when I got into junior high, my dad's like, okay, you got to pick 2 sports. This is too much. It's too expensive. Pick 2. So I ended up picking softball and volleyball. And I was on school teams, and I was on travel ball teams, and in high school, I was doing workouts. I was doing CrossFit workouts across the street from my high school. So volleyball season's in the fall. That was my whole fall. Plus, I was playing softball on top of in between the games and practices for volleyball. And then softball season was in the spring, and then summer league for both. And yeah, I just was constantly playing sports. I was also in school. I took college credits in high school. I, had a 3.5 to 4.0 GPA all through high school. I was very determined on being successful and a high achiever, and I wanted to make my parents proud. And that's just something that has relayed into my adulthood and my adult life. Being busy, always becoming better, always challenging myself, and being ambitious. So this is where ambition can get you in trouble. Last year is a year, I'm going to talk about 2024 a lot because I learned so much about last year, about myself, about business. And this year I was really able to apply those things. And so 2024, I was 2 years into business of owning the marketing agency. We made 2 years in January 2024. And we opened a content studio in our building, in our office, which, worked into what we were doing for marketing. And then we opened a influencer agency that summer. And then we opened a modeling agency in August. And okay, I went from owning 1 business to owning 4 in a year. I also went from having 1 employee in January to 10 in July. So now I have 4 business owners, 10 employees, in the matter of 8 months. What? What? Looking back, I'm like, when I was in that year, and when I was going through all of those opportunities presenting itself and all of these ideas coming up, and I'm like, I just don't understand. I couldn't pass it up. Like it was a yes. It was a hell yes with nothing negative behind it at all. And I just knew that everything that we were doing, it fed into each other. It was like this ecosystem of businesses that all feed into each other, because the influencers can work with the local brands. Then we can also rep influencers to work with bigger brands too. And then the content studio was a place that we could podcast for our clients and do campaign shoots and photo shoots and video shoots. And then the modeling agency would feed into campaigns for our clients as well. So it was just like, it made sense. But there's just not enough time in the day and not enough energy for one person to make each of those successful. And that was something that I had to learn, and a pill to swallow. All I talk about in this podcast is all of the pills that I had to swallow as an entrepreneur, literally. And sometimes some pills take a little bit longer for me to digest, and also realize that I need to swallow the pill. That's the biggest thing, is realizing when it's time for you to swallow it. So another thing, like around 2024, because 2023, I went to London for a marketing seminar. And in that seminar, there was great things about marketing. But the biggest thing I took away from that seminar was one of the business sections that were in there, workshops, and like learning your value, learning your mission statement. And I mentioned this before. I looked at that page for like 15 minutes and I couldn't freaking put the pen to the paper. I'm like, there's so many things that I want to be known for that I want to do. I don't even know how to like condense this, right? So I spent the rest of 2023 trying to figure that out. In 2024, I had a lot of clarity. So once I realized what the end goal was, it was tunnel vision. And so I was up super late. I was up super early. I was working super late. I was very, very caffeinated. I remember my eyes twitching. I remember like all of these symptoms that I'm now seeing means that you have high cortisol levels, because my social media somehow knew, of course, the algorithm knew that I had high cortisol levels and started feeding me content like saying like, hey, if your eye is twitching, you have high cortisol. And I was just ignoring it during that time. I didn't care. I didn't care if I had high cortisol. I didn't care if my whole life was the business. I did not care. I remember my therapist being like, Savannah, you have to have a hobby. You have to do things for yourself. I was like, no, I don't. Like, I will argue with my therapist. Like, it's not good. I am so headstrong and hard-headed sometimes that like all I see is what I see. And there's pros and cons to that. My company grew by 226% because that was what my focus was on. That was my tunnel vision. And the numbers show that, but my mental health also shows it. So I was, how old was I in 2023? I was 27 right now. I was 25. I don't know how to scale a business. I don't know how to write SOPs. I don't know how to hire employees. I don't know how to manage employees. I was just, figuring out everything along the way. And like, that's when my friend Colin in Birmingham really put me on Layla Hermosi. And I remember like driving up to Birmingham for 5 hours, and I listened to Layla the whole 5 hours there and back. So 10 hours, just like absorbing everything Layla had to say about operating a business and running a team and making sure your tactics are good and making sure your SOPs and your systems are good. Like, if you listen to Layla, you know what she's about. And if you don't listen to Layla and you're an entrepreneur, you have to. She literally frameworks everything that you need to know. So then in 2024, I booked a seminar to go to acquisition. And that experience was amazing. It was the most amount of money I've ever paid to go to a seminar, like the workshop ticket by itself. It was kind of a hard decision for me to make. I remember calling Colin and being like, hey, like they have this workshop. I don't know if I should do it. And he was like, that's up to you, but like, you're not going to regret it. So I booked that trip in June of 2024 after I hired a bunch of employees and the scaling and, all the things happened. And, I was one of the youngest people in that room. I probably made the least amount of money in that room, or damn near close to, one. And there's nothing about that room that scared me. And my dad constantly had me like play up when I was playing sports. So I was 12 playing with 14-year-old girls that were, 12 to 14 is a huge jump when you're growing and your athleticism. And he was like, you will never be the best one on the team. What is the point? I'm not going to pay travel ball money for you to be the best kid on the team, because it's not going to make you better. It's going to make you cocky, and you're just not going to become a better player. So I'm used to being uncomfortable. I'm used to being the worst kid on the team and then making my way and working my way into, hey, you're going to play me because you're not going to be able to sit me on the bench. You're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to be able to tell me that I am incapable of doing something. And there was instances in my life where when I was playing sports, I was not the biggest kid. I was not the most athletic kid until I started working my ass off to be good. I started working my ass off to be proven, to show proof to my coach and my other players and the parents on the team that there was no way that you could sit me on the bench. Because if you sat me on the bench, you were dumb. You were making a very dumb decision. And that has led into business. And at the same time, I remember one of my coaches, look, I love my coach to death that told me this to this day. This was a very, very important moment in my life that my dad guided me through. But this was an insane moment in my life. I was 12 years old. I was pitching in a game. I remember the ballpark. I don't remember the name of the city that we were in, but I could draw the ballpark on a piece of paper. My coach comes out to the mound. She calls time, comes out to the mound. She looks at me. She snatches the ball out of my glove and she tells me that I am the worst pitcher she's ever seen. And go sit on the bench. You're done for the game. You're done for the whole weekend. So I go sit on the bench and I'm, of course, crying. I'm 12 years old. My coach just told me I was the worst pitcher she's ever seen. And at the end of the game, we get in our team huddle. We're supposed to go to a World Series in Tennessee, I think. And we get in the team huddle and she's like, we're not going to Tennessee because of Savannah. We're not going to the World Series because of Savannah. And I'm shattered. I'm heartbroken. I get in the car and I'm bawling, crying. And I'm like, Dad, I quit. I'm done. And before this team, we were going through hell with travel ball team, with finding a travel ball team that, I don't know, was going to develop their players and not just, play their coaches' kids. And so this was just another moment that I was just like, why? Maybe this just isn't for me. And I was like, I'm done. I quit. My dad's like, okay, you can quit. That's fine. Or you can work your ass off and prove her wrong. So I worked my ass off and I proved her wrong. And when I went to high school, I started my freshman year, a 4-year letterman jacket at a 5A school. I had the highest batting average on the team sophomore year, junior year, and senior year, ranging between 450 and 500 batting average for my 3 years. I was a first team all district for first base my sophomore year, all metro and all state. My junior year, I was first team all district, all metro, all state for center field. And my senior year, I was all district, all metro, all state for pitching. So all state in 3 different positions, highest batting average all 3 years, 4-year letterman. And I have all that to give to the coach that told me I was the worst pitcher in the world. That's the worst pitcher she's ever seen. I also was told in high school that I was too small to play in college, that I would never play in college. I, in fact, did play in college. I started my freshman year in college, got Conference Player of the Week in college, top 3 batting average my freshman year. Yeah, so basically the biggest lesson my dad instilled in me was nobody is going to tell you what you can and can't accomplish and what you can and can't do. And when somebody tells me that I am incapable of doing something, all that does is light a fire under my ass to prove them wrong and shut them up by facts. I don't speak words. I don't care. You can tell me whatever you want to say to me, but I'm going to prove you wrong through facts and through actions. And that ties into just being in a room full of people that are better than me. So I'm not uncomfortable there. And I loved every single moment of not only being able to talk to Layla directly and also ask questions directly to their like directors of their business, but also talking to the other business owners that are there and relating on a lot of different things and hearing about their journey and their experience. It was just such a cool and amazing moment for me in my career in that time. And I was so connected to Layla through podcasting and everything. And look, their motto is fuck your feelings, follow the plan, which I 100% agree with, but I think I'm just like a little bit softer than them. And I also was just like trying to figure out how I could manage business, but also keep my own personality and my own values and things that were important to me. So like, my family's super important to me. I love vacations. I love traveling. And I wanted to make sure that like I can still incorporate that into my business life and not just like morph myself into Layla Hermosi. Like it wasn't a healthy, it was like me trialing, erroring things of like, all right, do I be hardcore? Like, do I not fucking care about my feelings? And then like taking that to an extreme and like crashing out and realizing like, hey, like Layla has her own way of doing things. I also need to have my own way of doing things, but take what she's teaching and implement that into my life up until an extent, you know? Because if you listen to their podcast, I think they've started traveling a little bit more. But when I was originally listening to them about 2 years ago, she was like, we don't really take vacations. We don't take trips. Like our business is our life. This is what makes us happy. And I was like, okay, yeah, business is my life. Business was makes me happy, but I just don't work that way. And I like taking 2-week vacations with my family. So it was just like a learning curve of like what I wanted to be known as and what I wanted to be as a business and my own flow of like personal and business and things like that. But look, 2024 for me, it was chaotic. I felt like the business was scaling and I needed to keep up with the business, but in reality, that's not how it works. It's you decide how fast the business grows and you decide the pace of everything and you decide how many employees you need to hire and you decide how many clients you bring in a month. And it's not, the business doesn't run you, you run the business. And that right there needs to be plastered all over my walls. And like one of the other things that I realized too was, yes, I had all of these ideas and I had all these visions and I had like, oh my God, let's do a content studio. Oh my God, the modeling agency. Oh my God, the influencer agency. And I was meeting all these people that could be my business partners for it and it made sense for them too. But I was rushing it. Like I was rushing opening the content studio, doing this, let's do it. And when I was talking to Colin, I mentioned I had called him in my last episode when I'm going through that low season was I think that I got so pulled in to posting things on social media that like I had to like prove to people that I was successful by opening all of these companies. And I think a lot of it had to do with like my own ego. And that was like really hard for me to accept and also realize that I was doing those things and making those decisions based off of ego and proving people wrong and proving to people that I am successful and capable. So, you know, there's extremes to these mindsets and extremes to these mentalities. And you kind of have to learn that like too much ambition will put you in a situation that's like sticky. And then you got to go back and fix everything that you've done and back, like retrace your steps and backtrack a little bit to like quality control and like bring everything together. It was like this like loose puzzle. And now we just need to like make it a nice, tight, beautiful puzzle. But also on top of that, like with my high cortisol levels and being super caffeinated all the time, I look at some of the podcasts that I filmed previously, and some of like the videos that I was talking in, and I'm like a squirrel, like talking so fast, like I had so much to say, And I also realized like I would talk over people, and it was never because I was not like what they're saying wasn't important, but no, regardless of why you're talking over people, it's so rude. And I think it was just because I had so many things going on in my brain. I was super caffeinated. I had so many ideas. I wanted to like pour it out to everybody. I wanted to help everybody. I wanted to tell everybody all my ideas. I wanted to tell everybody how I can help them. And I just needed to slow down. Like we just needed to chill for a sec. Slowing my speaking down, slowing my mind down, slowing my breathing down, slowing my decision-making process down. Because this is common sense, but I wasn't like doing it. I was hiring people. I was making very important decisions without thinking of what the long-term effects of these decisions were going to be. And you know, when you're doing things for the first time, I was 25 and we're scaling. It's my first time ever scaling a company the way that we did. You also don't really know what the long-term effects are going to be. You know, you got to research and like, hey, if I do this, what are some long-term effects or things that I'm going to have to deal with down the line? I wasn't even thinking like that yet, like thinking long-term. I was thinking for the now because I didn't even have time to think of the long-term. But like breaking that down, slowing that thinking process down, knowing everything that goes into hiring an employee, for example, like, okay, if I hire them for $50,000 a year, I'm paying $50,000. Nope. You're paying like 55-ish because you got to pay taxes. And then if you also offer insurance and all of that. So it's like, I didn't know that. I also didn't know you had to have workers' comp. Like there's just so many other things that go into that I just had no idea about. Another thing that I didn't know about, which is crazy. I didn't know you were supposed to file taxes like on a quarterly basis and that you got penalized if you didn't. I had no idea. I had no clue. No clue. Not one. So until this year, literally until 2025. And the CPA that I have now is amazing. They take care of everything. My bookkeeper is amazing. My payroll guy is amazing. I am way less stressed about those things. And I know that, you know, as entrepreneurs and founders, we try to like manage as much as we can until we can't. Those are things that I would delegate immediately. It's just nothing about it is glamorous. Nothing about it is fun. Find someone you trust. Find somebody that understands your business and that's going to take care of you and genuinely wants what's best for your company. I would hate to deal with that. Another thing too, like with slowing down, being more aware of my triggers. Why am I triggered? What is the emotion that I'm feeling? I literally took a picture of, it's like this little laminated sheet in my therapist's office of like every single emotion, okay? Because I dealt with every emotion with anger. And I was like angry all the time about everything. So if somebody hurt my feelings, I was angry instead of being disappointed or feeling neglected or ashamed or whatever. Like I have a picture of it on my phone because I literally don't know what my emotions are. So like I'm laughing. I'm almost 28 years old, like relearning, oh, this happened and I feel this. That is the thoughts that go into my head. And identifying the emotions and the feelings when something happens and being able to like set things up for myself for when I'm feeling that way. If I'm feeling a little anxious, okay, let's go outside and touch grass, literally sit in the grass, touch grass, get yourself into reality and take deep breaths. Slow your breathing down. And it's crazy how much that can change your feeling and your mood. My husband came home the other night, really stressed out about work. I can't stop thinking about work. He's really overstimulated. I'm like, all right, our bathtub in our bathroom, he calls it Spa Iconomopolis. But it's really relaxing. It's like we have this big, I don't even know how to explain what the bathtub is. How do you call the bathtub? That's like it's not like in the wall. You know what I'm talking about? It's like separated from the wall. A standalone tub. Yeah. So it's like a standalone tub. And I like lit a bunch of candles in there. I started the bath. I put Epsom salt. I put bubbles in there. And he doom scrolls on his phone. He does look at like educational things for his job. But I'm like, all right, phone off, 10 minutes. I put on spa music. I closed the door. And I was like, close your eyes and just focus on your breathing. He came out of the bathtub a totally different person. Not irritable, not stressed, relaxed. And it's really just finding things that are going to be able to calm you down and bring you back to earth. Because a lot of the times your anxious thoughts is your mind spiraling and putting the worst scenarios in your head. And you just got to bring yourself back to earth. But when I'm able to kind of like, mistakes were made during 2024, and it wasn't anything that hindered the business in a way, like financially. But there was a lot of like employee situations that didn't pan out right. I got blasted on social media because I had to let go of an employee because she wanted part-time hours and I couldn't hire her friend who was part-time. Like there was things that happened that a lot weren't in my control, and I was just trying to do what was best for my business. And I scaled too quickly, and some things were missed, and quality control things were missed. And I'm 25 scaling a company and learning. And, you beat yourself up for the mistakes that you make. And at least I do, beat myself up for the mistakes that I make. But then to realize, like, I'm 27 now, looking back, I'm like, little Sav that's 25 years old has no idea how to do that and how to navigate that, firing an employee for the first time that year was a horrible feeling. Like the first employee I had to let go and sit down and tell her like, hey, like this just isn't working out. Like I want you happy, and I just genuinely don't think that you're happy here. Like it's not a good feeling from my end. It's not easy to hear from their end. It's not any type of conversation anybody wants to have. But that was something that I had to do. I had to, confront a contractor that went against their NDA and was doing client shoots without letting us know and telling us when the client was through us. It was just like a lot of things that I navigated that year that I don't know if I necessarily could have done different, but definitely scaling differently, hiring slower and firing faster. Just reflecting on that year and seeing what mistakes were made. But this came up on Facebook, and I think it was a business owner in this area that posted it, and I had to write it down because it was really good. Every mistake is tuition you pay in the school of entrepreneurship. You're not losing. You're investing in lessons that make you impossible to shake in the future. And that is all about, you have to experience these things to know how you want to navigate them. And sometimes you navigate them incorrectly that first time. And so the next time it happens is the new opportunity for you to do it better or change the way that you handled it. And that's just all on growth and learning how to adapt and learning how to learn. And yeah, some mistakes might cost you more, and you'll get through that, and you just got to overcome it. And then you set up tactical things in place to make sure that either that doesn't happen again or if that situation's handled differently moving forward. Entrepreneurship isn't easy. It's not. And if it were, everybody would do it. Just remember that. And don't beat yourself up when you're making mistakes. Just make sure that you're reflecting and putting things in place that are going to help you in your future. So thank you guys for tuning in today. If you want to message me or comment like some mistakes that you made that you thought were going to cost you your company, but this is how you navigated it, I would love to see those. And we can also incorporate that into some of the episodes where I can answer some things or share some things that might have been inspirational and help other people also navigate that. So I definitely want to make sure that we're able to bring in some feedback or any type of situations that you guys have dealt with, and we can talk about that as a community as well. But if you haven't subscribed or followed us on social media, please do. We'll have it on the caption and everything else below. But thanks for tuning in. Y'all have a great week.